Talking about another big position group along, Clemson and another group going through some growing pains and some things like that. That offensive line. What are you hearing about this offensive line? What are you hearing about Mac Luke? Early returns. Um, are they going to be vastly improved this year? What is that makeup of that offensive line looking early as far as early returns for fall camp goes?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned I hit on it briefly a little bit earlier. I think this group has just a lot more. I think the biggest thing is they have a lot more functional depth than they did last year. Um, they feel really, really good. I think about what they have in the starting five, but I think they feel a lot better about the guys behind them than they did last year. And I think that's a testament to bringing in a guy like Matt Luke. And I talked about the competition there has been a lot more noticeable. Not just the positional battles and stuff, but going up against this talented defensive line, um, it's been a lot more competitive, and I think that's the start of getting that position group turned around in the direction we all want it to go. Because offensive line has long been, even before Dabo was here, has long been the position that Clemson just did not produce very well at. Just have not had a ton of guys drafted, and that's been a selling point or a negative recruiting talking point for the longest. Not just under Thomas Austin, it happened under Robbie Caldwell and any offensive line coach you've had before it. So now this is the first year in a long time where you've brought in a guy who has no ties to Clemson and has done it at a high level at multiple different places. And so, this is a year where you have a big year and a marked improvement on the offensive line, can parlay into, Matt Luke on the trail, landing some of the big fish that Clemson had got in, occasionally, but now you can bring multiple guys of a Jackson Carman's caliber, or Tristan Lay was a 5-star coming out, or Mitch Hyatt was a highly rated guy coming out. Like getting those types of guys, but not just one guy was headlining that entire class, but you get multiple guys of that caliber in the same class. That's what I think would be really exciting, because it's just never made sense to me why Clemson has been such a line of scrimmage focused program on the defensive side of the ball, but haven't been but they haven't been on the offensive line. It's never really made sense. So I think you have a potential first-round pick on your offensive line already in Blake Miller. If he has a big year, they a lot of NFL mock drafts have him as a first-round pick, which would be massive, from an optics standpoint for Clemson. Yeah. Selfishly, I'd like it for him to use his fourth year if he wants to, but also if he has a strong year and gets drafted in the first round for year one of Matt Luke, like that's something you could point to. He's like, man, look, you saw what happened. You saw what happened with Clemson's offensive line before Matt Luke got here, and in year one he has a first round pick. Like right. That means a lot, and that will do. It does a lot to kind of, kind of shed those Clemson can't develop offensive linemen, kind of narrative, which unfortunately had a lot of truth to it. So that's my long-winded way of saying the offensive line is really promising this year, just with what you have returning and the young talent you brought in the last couple of cycles under an experienced, tier 1 caliber offensive line coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, man, I think I've made it very clear we hired the right guy to get the job done. And he's not going to fix all Clemson's problems this season along the offensive line, but you can already see the improvement just by the way those guys talk in interviews to me. The attitude is completely different. They look excited about football. They sound excited about football. They sound like there's just been a breath of fresh air breathed into that room. And I think it's going to pay dividends this season. Again, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and be a top 5, top 10, top 15 offensive line. I don't know what they'll end up being at the end of the season. but I do know that they are going to continually to get better under a guy like Matt Luke. The guy's he's got too much football knowledge, and he's too good at coaching the offensive line position for it not to for it to translate onto the field. So again, who knows what that looks like at season's end, and how much, when the dust settles of the 2024 season, and we're looking back at the end of the season, and me and you were talking about, improved groups. I think offensive line is one of those groups that we'll be talking about. It'll just be by how much they improved, and you mentioned the possibilities out there for some of these bigger time offensive linemen that we have. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do in year one, and more importantly, I look forward to him building an offensive line culture at Clemson University, because as you mentioned, I think it's something that's been sorely lacking at Clemson for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been a Clemson fan, basically.
Yep.
We have not been serious about building the offensive side of the ball in the line of scrimmage like we have on the defensive side of the ball. And, to your point, it really makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Clemson has been known for their presence along the defensive line for,
decades.
A decade plus, decades at this point.
You go back to, you can go back to the Tommy Bowden years. You had, you were putting defensive linemen in the NFL, first round defensive linemen. James Adams, rest in peace. You have that pedigree. You go back to the Danny Ford era. The guys you were putting in the league there. Clemson has been a defensive line factory for over multiple coaching staffs. Obviously the current one has been the current head coach has put in the most and has really taken it to another level. But Clemson has always been a great school for defensive line talent, and I think that's partially because in the state of South Carolina over the years has been one of the best, especially per capita for defensive line talent. But now you never parlayed that, and you never match that on the offensive side of the ball, and it's just like why not? Other programs have done it. There's not another program you can name that has won at the level that Clemson has over the last 20 years that has produced as poorly at offensive line as Clemson has, and that sucks.
It makes no sense, but I think finally we're starting to we've made the right hire, and we're going to start turning that around, and I look forward to it because if there's one thing you want to hang your hat on as a program, it's being elite along the offensive and defensive lines, and that's really where we need to get to as far as the offensive side of the ball. So continue to hope we can get there.
So offensive line.
Okay.
Offensive line. Whew. Ryan Linthicum keeps the starting job. We haven't done this one, have we? Ryan Linthicum keeps the starting job for the entire duration of the regular season.
Man, that's a tough one for me, right? Because I want to say sell, because if I say sell, then that would mean he's played pretty well, right? The offensive line has improved. He's an upperclassman.
If you say B, so I said Ryan Linthicum keeps keeps the job for the duration of the regular season. So
I want to say buy, because that would mean he played really well, right? He's an upperclassman. He held on the position. Obviously, our offensive line's probably in a pretty good place.
Yes, assuming no injuries, Chase. Yeah, we're assuming no injuries in this scenario.
But then part of me is like, you got that young dude Harris Sewell over there, man, and I saw what he could do last year, and you'd have him for potentially 3 more seasons at that position. So that's a really hard one for me. But as of right now, and just seeing how Ryan Linthicum came in from the summer, I will buy. I will BYOG on that. I think he's going to hold on to it, barring injury. He's definitely got his body in a place where he's never had it at Clemson thus far. So I think that's encouraging, and hopefully Matt Luke has breathed new life into him and the rest of the guys on there. So I'll buy. I will
All
buy.
right. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think, funnily enough, and it's probably not a good idea. But one of the things that kind of sold me on him being potentially being the guy was a clip that the football page posted of him in one-on-ones with DeMonte Capehart, and he was absolutely giving DeMonte hell. Like, it was not what I would have expected. I mean, with how powerful DeMonte is, he has, like, maybe other than Peter Woods, he has like the most powerful hands on the team. He might actually have more powerful hands than Peter Woods, especially since he's older. And he absolutely like stalemated him, and I was like, wow. So I mean, I think he's done the work. I hope you guys can't hear that. They're doing yard work outside.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I think he's done the work this offseason. So I mean, we'll see. But I think we kind of were skeptical about him in the offseason, and just kind of like, well, I mean, he's been here the longest, and he's just kind of the logical next one up. But haven't seen much of him, and the times he did play, he wasn't overly impressive. But he might be ready to take that step, and the coaching staff seems to feel like he's ready to take that step. So yeah, I'm with you, BYOG.